Hey, all right there, Brian.
Hello, Lisa. How are we doing? All right.
So I'm kind of virtually joining you in Hartlepool today.
Yeah.
So
Studio in the background there. Good shot. I think that was taken in 1998. That shot actually when it was first built. When it was refurbed.
So tell us all about this place and how you're involved in the creative arts in Teesside and the Tees area.
Well, the studio was used to be in Durham Street for I think since 1984. It was a converted. I think that might have been a converted church. I'm not actually quite sure. It was a converted church in the Headland that was converted into rehearsal rooms and studios for. It was a charity, and originally it was for giving cheap rehearsal and cheap recording to unemployed and students. And if you were, if you were working on that, you could go and use it. So that was a charity, and it was funded. Then they got a lot of money. I think there's about 12 funding streams. Said, look, we need to move if we're going to make this bigger. And then this church came in the town, an old Baptist church came available, was bought, and it was converted into a 210 capacity studio with 2 recording studios upstairs and 4 rehearsal rooms. That was in 1998, May 1998, so it's 22 years old this year, was 22 years old this year. But since the funding over the years dried up, these funding streams dried up, and then since about 2007, it started to close its doors every 2 or 3 years. People tried to take it over. There was different groups of people. Obviously, the trustees who were there were trying to take it over. The original manager left. And then there was different people taking over. And then in 2004, September 2004, there was a building company in Hartlepool who wanted to buy it to convert it into flats, basically. That was there. And I think with that in mind, the group of us got together and said, we can't let that happen, really. It's the lifeblood of, it's been the lifeblood of Hartlepool music scene for 20 years. The only purpose-built music venue in the town for a start, and it's a great building. And because it's a charity and we own the building and the assets, we were able to say, put our 2 fingers up to that. So that's no, we're going to try and do this. So obviously the first few months, we had the electricity cut off, the water cut off. We basically had to do a gig in benefit of the studio in the first 2 or 3 months, which is December. We call it the Boxing Day Big One. We had to do that in an alternative venue because we couldn't open the venue because there was no electric on. But since then, we've bedded down. We have a group of 8 trustees, volunteers, who virtually run the place. I book the bands, do the marketing, but obviously we have independent promoters coming in and doing it. So we've basically kept the wolves from the door, basically, over the last few years. There's been ups and downs, obviously, financially. We've had a few little bumps in the road, but we kept it good because the volunteers don't get paid. We don't pay rent, and we don't put the building as ours. We own the building as a charity. But at the minute, we haven't had a gig since the 14th of March. We are a PLC without the limited, and also a charity as well. So we're all right. We're in good fettle at the minute. I mean, the building could do with a bit of a few maintenance problems with the building at the minute, but we'll get them sorted.
But amazing to be able to save a building like that and keep it for the arts rather than, as you say, probably some lovely flats that it would probably have turned into. Yeah. It's great to know that can still be done. I think we're kind of lucky in the Tees area in that, we're not in a constant fight against developers. There's a lot of places that, particularly in Middlesbrough at the moment, are being given over to the arts and hopefully kept in the long term. So has this always been what you do? You always been engaged with the arts, always kind of been
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be a graphic designer at the age of 9. So yeah, as far as like, I felt like I went to our college in 1985. Like, and again, that's another story. But yeah, I've always been in the arts. I've always been in music. I've been involved in playing in bands since I was 16. I'm now 51. I put my first gig on in Hartlepool at the old Labour Club in Park Road in October 1986. So I've been involved, fingers in the pie, since, for how many years is that now? Is that 35 years? 35 years. So, and I champion, I've always championed music from Hartlepool, because I think it's always been, we always been out on the limb, Hartlepool. It's not easy. They always say you can't drive through Hartlepool. You have to drive into Hartlepool. We suffer a little bit from geography. The public transport isn't brilliant, so we do suffer from that. And I think that's why at the moment, we've always had them little waves of hotbed of a music scene, and at the minute, it's absolutely brilliant what's coming out of Hartlepool. And I think that's why sometimes, because we're stuck out on a limb. What else can, I'm not saying what else can young kids do, there's loads of other things to do, but I generally think it's because we are just out on the limb, and I think that's why we have such good music over the years coming from Hartlepool. So it's a good thing, it's a good town to live in, and it has its naysayers, but I love Hartlepool and the people from it. So
well, it's brilliant to hear that, because obviously I lived down in London for like 20 years or so, and I just think it's absolutely incredible around here, like the creativity, and I'd not made it to Hartlepool until last year. I came down with the Teesman Poets and performed at the Waterfront Festival, and I had no idea that any of that was there. It's like you have a vision of a place in your head that's created by narratives imposed upon that place from outside, and and it's absolutely nothing like you've been led to believe.
No, nothing at all.
And I guess that's what's really important right now, is that there seems to be a general consensus that Teesside should start telling its own stories in its own way, because they actually know what's going on. There seems to have been too many cases where somebody from outside has come in with an idea of what they want to say about Teesside, and they're going to say it despite any evidence to the contrary, because
I agree. I think anything you're going to say about anywhere has to come internally. It has to be internal. You can fly anyone in and ship anyone in who's had experience, of got a great CV, been to university for 3 years, but no, I think the stories have to come from the people, and I think that I study marketing, and that stories always come from the people, and I think that's the most important thing. I think one good thing about the situation we're in now, made a lot of connections with other towns, with other people like me in other towns and cities, whereas I've known them virtually on social media, but I've been having Zoom calls and phone calls with those people, and even wider, even going into Yorkshire and up to Northumberland as well, where so it's been really good for that. So I think that those are really good things that have happened during lockdown. I think those connections with people who were only likes and shares on Facebook usually.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's been, because obviously I'm running my club by Zoom at the moment, and it's been great because I always it's always mainly local Teesside artists that I'd have on, and then a bunch of a crew from maybe Liverpool or Sheffield or Brighton or Leeds would come up for it, and it's been kind of like the same thing online, but I just think it opens up more of an audience to what's happening in the Tees area, when obviously anyone can tune in from anywhere, and it's been carnage, but it's been, it was when it was in person, really, and it was obviously we were booked to come and be at the studio.
Well, I know that it came up the other day on my newsfeed. It's the one I went to last year, which was about July time, wasn't it? At the old Red Rooms. Yeah. So we'll have to look at that next year then, if we're allowed to put live things on.
Definitely. I mean, I guess that's been the downside for you, running a venue.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, it's been
and also your gigs in other places.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I had loads of plans for Pin Drop this year because the 10th anniversary. That's my acoustic arm, that my independent promotion, and that I had to cancel all of that. And then Lost in the Woods Gathering, the festival I do, which we're doing the 5th anniversary this year, so that had to get cancelled. And I had a few gigs with Lost in the Woods that I had to pull, of course, and rearrange. I was obviously rearrange one that was due in May, then I rearranged it to August. Now rearranged it to December. And I'm only hopeful of that, you know what I mean? I'm not holding out much hope, but hopefully we can get back to some sort of normality, live music-wise by December. But, you know, I'm a realist, you know, and so, you know, it's, you know, you can only hope, can't you? You know, it's about, I would say live music is my lifeblood because, you know, I play in bands as well as promoting, as well as booking for the studio. So, and I go to a lot of gigs as well. So it's massive for me. You know, it's a massive void. So, but you know, I'm lucky. There's other people who aren't so lucky. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And all we can do is, you know, wait and hope and plot for the return and just wait and see. And you know, hopefully everyone, you know, because I just wish everyone would just stay home for a few weeks, you know, everyone en masse,
well,
sort of at the start of March, but we'll not, we're deviating from the point here. We shan't turn it into a big COVID thing. Is there anything else you'd like to say about your work or anything like that that I haven't covered here?
Not really as such. I mean, as far as me myself, well, I do have a day job as well. You know, this is everything I do as far as the art and music goes. Is all well, I say a hobby, passion. I'd rather say a passion than a hobby, really. You know, the hobby is the play music and stuff. The passion is trying to keep live music alive in Hartlepool. And you know, I always say if there's something not happening in your town, do it yourself. And I always say that. And you know, when I always say there wasn't any acoustic artists coming on a regular basis to Hartlepool, so I thought, right, I'm going to do that myself. And there wasn't a psych movement in the T side. I thought, right, I need to create something. So that's happening. So that's like, you know, and that's why Lost in the Woods was created, you know. So obviously, if there's something happening in your town, if it isn't happening in your town or the place you want it to happen and you want it to happen, make it happen yourself. You know, it's easy enough to do. You know.
Brilliant. Absolutely. We need plenty of that. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Brian, and I hope to see you in actual person soon.
Yeah. Okay. Catch you later. Bye.
Take care.